Okay, welcome back to another 15 minutes of Torah. Today we're going to go through another proof. This time the proof is going to be of not the Torah, the first 5 books, but the writings which come after the prophets. So the very end of what most people call the Old Testament. So we're going to be focusing on Megillah Ester, which is the book of Ester. For the people that are not familiar with the story, very quickly, the book of Esther is about a Jewish woman named Esther, and she became the queen of a Persian king named Ahasuerus in Persia. The time frame was right at the beginning of the building of the Second Temple. So Persia was a very big empire, basically a world empire. They ran 127 countries, and Jews were scattered throughout all these countries that was run by Persia. Ahasuerus had an evil advisor named Haman. Haman wanted to kill all the Jews, just commit a complete genocide. He was able to convince the king to let him do this, so Haman made a proclamation that in 1 year, everybody in all of these 27 provinces would be able to kill any Jew that's in their province, and they could take all the Jews' property. So when Queen Esther found out about this, all the Jews fasted and repented, trying to get the decree repealed by God, and Esther worked on the king, trying to get the king to repeal the decree. So she was able to get the decree repealed, and she also got the king to be able to let the Jews defend themselves if somebody did try to kill them. So Esther had an uncle named Mordecai. He was also another main figure in this story. And Haman hated Mordecai. So at the very end of the story, the king wanted to honor Mordecai because he found out Mordecai did something that saved the king's life. So he told Haman to put a royal robe on Mordecai and lead him through the streets on the king's horse to show him honor. So Haman begrudgingly had to do it because the king ordered it, so he did. And most people in the town thought that the person riding the horse was Haman and the person leading the horse was Mordecai, but it was the reverse. So as we were going down the streets, Haman's daughter was in the second floor of a building, and she was looking out the window, and she thought that her father was on the horse and Mordecai was in front. So she took her bedpan and she dumped it on what she thought was Mordecai's head, but it turned out to be her father's head. When her father looked up to find out who dumped human waste on him, he seen it was his daughter, and his daughter seen it was him. She was so distraught, she jumped out of the window and committed suicide. Then, after that, the Jews were able to defend themselves, and they wound up killing a lot of the people that tried to kill them. But they didn't take any of their spoils. So that's where we're going to go to, right at that part of the story. All the defense has been done, all the enemies of the Jews have been killed, and now the story goes in where, up here, this is Esther chapter 9, verse 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's where we're going to be at. So it says, so the Jews struck all their enemies with the sword, slaying and destroying and wreaked all their will upon their enemies. In the fortress of Shushan, which was the capital city, the Jews killed a total of 500 men, and they also killed, and then they list 10 people. These 10 people are Haman's sons, so they list these 10 people by name, and if you look right after they list the names, it says the 10 sons of Haman. So they killed all these people, but the Jews didn't take any of the spoils. And then it says after that, the king said to the queen, just in Shushan alone, you killed 500 men plus 10 sons of Haman. I wonder how many people the Jews killed in the other provinces. And then he goes on to ask her, what else do you want? See here it says, what is your wish now? It should be granted you. What else is your request? And it should be fulfilled. So they've already taken revenge. All the enemies are dead. Haman's 10 sons are hung. So what is her request to the king? She says, let the Jews in Shushan be permitted to act tomorrow as they did today, and let Haman's 10 sons. It says here impaled on a stake, but actually in the Hebrew it's yitlu means hung on the tree. So it really means hung. But she's saying, let us tomorrow hang Haman's 10 sons, but they were already hung. So why would you do it again tomorrow? So the rabbis always had a problem trying to figure out why is this verse here? Maybe it's out of order. They didn't understand completely why this verse was here. Also, if you look at the list of Haman's sons, Hebrew is written in very specifically, and the letters have to be, all the letters are pretty much the same size. So, I won't be fast. But in this list, for some reason, there's 3 letters that are written really small. You see this letter here, this is a Tav, that's really small. And then, down here you have a Shin, that's really small. And then right here you have a Zion, that's really small. Now in Hebrew, the letters, every letter has a numerical value. For instance, the first letter of the alphabet would have a numerical value of 1. The second would have a numerical value of 2. So if you take these letters and you use their numerical values and add them up, what you get is Tuf is 400, Shin is 300, so that's 700, and Zion is 7, so we have 707. So we never knew what these small letters were, but we have to keep all of our writings exactly like they were given to us. So if the original writer of the book wrote the letters small, we have to write them small, even though we might not understand why. And for thousands of years, nobody knew why. So what this is, these small letters, they've figured out what they are. And they figured out this verse of why she's asking to kill and hang Haman's 10 sons again after they've been hung. So these letters, the numerical value is 707. Well, that's a Hebrew year. We write our numbers with letters. So when we want to write 1, we write an aleph. We don't write a 1 because aleph is the gematria of aleph is 1. So if we wanted to write 400, we would just write a tuf, and then we would know it's 400. So this is a Hebrew year, 707. It doesn't have the thousands place because just like in the Gregorian years, when we were in the 1900s, we didn't say 1950 or 1970. We would just say 70 because everybody knew that we were in the 1900s, so you didn't have to add the 19s. So we do the same thing. Well, we're in the year 5000, so this is 5707. So now we have to find the significance of something that happened in the Hebrew year 5707. And that year in the Gregorian calendar works out either 1946 or 1947. Because our years overlap your years. Our years start basically around September, October. So the first of our year, when our year turned, say 5707, it could have been September, October, and it would go to the September, October the next year. So 5707 could have been in the late 1946 or the early 1947s. Now this is what's interesting. If you go to Wikipedia and you look up the Nuremberg trials, you'll see that, let me get up to the top here, this is the Nuremberg trials. As you can see, these are the Nuremberg trials. The Nuremberg trials, the defense started in 1946, in July of 1946. By the time the defense was done, they convicted the people and they made their verdict. It was, as we see here, in October of 1946, so several months later. Now, if we look here, the sentences that were debated by the judges, it said 12 defendants were sentenced to death. And it lists the 12 people. And then it says on October 16th, and again it's 1946, 10 men were hung or hanged, and Goring killed himself. So now, what's interesting is, I should have done this earlier. Let me get a Hebrew date calendar up. Sorry. All right, Hebrew calendar converter. So let's look at this really quick. There we go. Let's just do that one. No, let's do another one. Do something a little easier. Let's just do the first. Oh, that's the one I just did. Oh, here we go. Okay, so we're looking for October 16th. October 16th, 1946. What was the Hebrew date? 5707. So you see what's going on here is this is 5707. So God's telling us that in 5707, the Jews are going to be able to hang 10 more people like Haman's sons that wanted to commit genocide against the Jewish people. That's why it says here, the queen says, let the Jews in Shushan be permitted to act in the future, tomorrow, in the future, also like they did today, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on a tree. In other words, let us kill 10 people that are trying to commit suicide or genocide, just like Haman's sons tried to do. So you see, that's why it's saying, and if something that doesn't make any sense, they're already hung. Why would she want to hang them again? She's talking about in the future. Now she doesn't realize this because God put it in her mind to write this down. So this is why it was so confusing that people didn't understand what this verse was talking about. It's talking about the Nuremberg trials and how we hung 10 of the Nazis just like they hung 10 of Haman's sons, which acted like Nazis. Now, notice I brought up that Goring killed himself. So it says here that Goring killed himself the day before. So only 10 of the men were hung. Goring killed himself, the last defendant. It doesn't say what happened to him, the last out of 12. But Goring he's the daughter of Haman that killed herself. So you see, in the book of Esther, we actually have a hint to the Nuremberg trials and what the Nazis did to us and what we did to them during the Nuremberg trials. So it's very interesting. People don't understand that in the Hebrew, you'll never get these clues in the English. You only can get them in the Hebrew. So people don't realize that all these books, they have these little clues in there that show that these are divine books that God gave us, and they were all given through prophecy. And that's why we have to keep the Hebrew exactly like we got it. If any of the scribes in the last 2,600 years would have changed any of these letters and made them the same size that they were supposed to be, we would have lost this clue forever, and we would have never known that this was talking about the Nuremberg trials. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.